Welcome back, guys. Thank you for joining again today. Now, in today's video, we are looking at, another keyword in GitLab that is called extend. Now, what we want to achieve is this. Now, if you look at what you have here, we are deploying to dev. We are also deploying to staging. But of course, basically, we're duplicating everything that we have in the deploy to dev. And that is what we are duplicating here in the staging, job as well. Now, how can we have, just one, job like this, and then we can actually just make use of that. We can actually just do some kind of, extract all the variables here and then use it in the other jobs instead of duplicating the code, like we have right here. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, for example, let's assume that we go here to the stage and then we say we want to have another stage, and then the stage is called deploy to prod, for example. All right, so we're deploying to prod, right? Now we're deploying to prod, okay? Now here, of course, that means we have to also duplicate all of these. I mean, since we're using a single server for that, right, we basically will have to duplicate, all of these. So I can say prod IP, and then I can see here that this is prod, endpoint, okay? Now, here also, that means what I would do again is basically to copy this guy, all right? I'm going to have to copy everything like this. And then I'm going to have to duplicate that also right here. And of course, I'm going to change these one to prod, prod. And then I'm going to change these one to, prod endpoint, okay? I mean, that means I have to duplicate, everything, right? And then, of course, that means I will have to come here also and change these one to maybe the prod IP, something like this, okay? And then I have to change these as well, to the prod IP, right? But this doesn't make any sense at all, right? So I have to change this one to prod as well. Okay, I mean, but this does not really make any sense, right? I mean, the port here also will have to change. So we can change this port to, let's say, port 5000, for example. And then, of course, don't forget, you have to change these one also, to deploy to prod, right? Now, but what we have here is basically duplication, right? I mean, we're just duplicating, all the things that we have. So what can we do to actually reduce, this code duplication, that we have here? How can we, reduce this? Now, what we can do, is this. Now, there's a keyword in GitLab that is called extend, right? I mean, we can go to the GitLab documentation to find out, what the extend keyword is about. But basically, it helps us to extend, a particular job configuration, to other jobs, which means other jobs will not have to necessarily define, all of the commands that they want to run explicitly. They can basically just leverage the job that has gone ahead of them, and then they can just pick, basically just parameterize, everything, right? And then they can now put in their own values, and then they can run that job as well. So the way you do that is basically to do something like this. So let's watch this. So here, I'm going to change this one back to deploy, and I'm going to put something here to say dot, right? So dot deploy. Now in GitLab, this is regarded as more like an hidden job, right? Which means it's a job that will not be visible, right, in your pipeline, right? By the time you run your pipeline, this job is not going to be visible, but it can be leveraged, by other jobs. So how can other job, leverage this particular thing? Now, what you can do here is basically to use variable, for certain things, right here. So let's see how we can actually, just use that, to get to achieve this. So here, I'm going to basically come here and I'm going to say, variables. Okay, so watch this. Now, what are the things that we want to use, variable for? Okay, so what are those things that we want to use, variable for right here? So let's take a look at a few things that we want to use, variable, to actually manage. Okay, number one of the few things we want to use variable for is SSH key. Right, so let's say SSH key. Now, in this case, I'm not going to assign a value to this, right? So I'm just going to open up something like this, right? So we're just going to put it like this here. I mean, other jobs will have to fill in that variable, by themselves, right? We don't have to pass in this particular variable, We don't have to do that, right? So SSH key is the first thing. Now here, I'm going to specify another variable, called server host. Okay, so I'm going to open it up like this. All right, and then come here. Now, another thing that we also need to do variable for is basically to say deployment underscore environment. So what is the deployment environment? So we put a variable for that, all right, as well. Okay, so look at that. And then here we can see application port. All right, so we need to parameterize all of these things. So basically, what we're basically doing is to, just use parameters, all right, for all of these things. And then the next one or the last one basically will be endpoint, right? Because we want to deploy to a different environment, right? So we have this right here. So we have all of these variables, all right, defined like this. Okay, so we have all these variables defined here, all right. And so now let us see, all right, what we need, all right, to do here. Okay, now that we have used the variables, right, is there anything that needs to change? Right, is there anything that needs to change? Of course, some things will have to change here. All right, so here I'm going to change this dev IP, all right, to basically, all right, to the server host, which I've defined here as well. So right here, I'm going to come here and I'm going to copy this, all right, copy that, and I'm going to come here, and this is going to be server host, all right, IP like this. So copy that, right? Okay, now copy that. Now, what other thing do we need to change? Now, for the app port, we need to also change that as well. So I'm going to copy this, and this is going to be a variable now instead of, all right, so that's going to be a variable, and then I'm going to paste it right here. Right, so I don't have to add code or write anything again. Now, instead of putting it like this as dev, I'm basically going to just say the deployment environment should be, all right, what this guy should pick up. So that's going to be another variable. So you put that here. All right, so what other thing do we need to do? Now here, under this environment, all right, I need to put a variable there also called the development environment, right? And then for the next one, it's no longer going to be dev endpoint. It's just going to be what? Endpoint, because it is now a variable, right? Now, once this has been done, we need to also now see, all right, what other thing that we need to change from here. Now, I'm going to leave this SH private key as is, all right, I'm going to leave that. We can reference that directly without changing, all right, anything in that place, right? So here also, I'm going to replace this server host, copy that, and then use that to replace this one. All right, so replace that one right here. All right, now I have parameterized, all right, everything particularly for this job. So now I have a single job, all right, that has all of the configuration, okay? Okay, I have a single job that has what? All of the configuration. Now this job, because I'm using a dot and it's not going to be visible in the pipeline, does not have to belong to any stage. So I can remove that, all right, from here. So I don't have to pull that, all right, in any stage. Okay, so now I have done, all right, I have parameterized some key, all right, values that we actually need. So how do I now deal, all right, with this, staging, prod and all of that? So how do I configure, all right, all of those ones, all right, now? Now what we can do here is basically I can come here now and just, create another thing and say deploy, all right, underscore dev right here. Okay, and then here I'm going to basically say the stage, all right, is going to be deploy, all right, underscore dev, right? So that's going to be the stage technically. Now here comes the keyword. So the keyword here is going to be extends, all right. So basically I am extending, all right, this particular job, right? So that is what I'm extending basically, right? So I'm extending what? I'm extending this particular, all right, this particular job is what I am extending. So I don't have to replicate all of this configuration in this particular job. I'm basically what? Extending that job. So how do I do that extension? So I'm going to come here and I'm going to grab all of these variables, copy that, all right, and then I'm going to come here, paste all the variables here. So at this point now, I need to now, all right, start passing all the values, particularly for this particular job, right? So here for this one, this is going to be, all right, my SSH private key. So I can come here and just grab this like this, copy that, all right, and then I can put that here. Of course, don't forget the $, right? And then for the server host now, that is going to just basically be this, right? Because I've declared all the variables, all right, like this, right? So I'm just going to grab this. That's the server host. So grab that, scroll all the way down, all right, here. And then the server host is just basically going to be this, right? It's a global variable declaration, right? Now the development, all right, the deploy environment, right? That can be, right? We've not defined that globally, right? So we can just say this is development. Okay, that's for this particular job, right? Now for the app port, we can also say that this one is port 3000, all right? And then for this particular endpoint, that can be, all right, the dev endpoint right here. So I'm going to copy that. All right, so I'm going to copy that, scroll all the way down. All right, and then I'm going to just put that as a variable. All right. Okay, I think there was a mistake there. All right, so I'm just going to reference that like this. So dev endpoint, right? So that's going to be dev endpoint. NPOINT. All right. So that's going to be what? The dev endpoint. Now look at it now. I have extended this particular job. Now I don't have to, right, copy everything, all right, as as I did all right before. So now I can actually just copy all of these and then just delete everything, right? I mean, that will reduce the number of lines that we have, right? And what I can do here is just to copy this guy, and then I can just duplicate that, all right, in, basically just two places. So I can say this is dev, all right, deployed to stage, all right, and then this belongs to the staging, all right, so that belongs to staging. And then, of course, I'm extending that deploy job, all right, again. So, I mean, it's still basically the same thing, but of course, the server host is going to change, all right, and the dev environment is going to change, and the app pod is also going to change, right? So here, the server host is going to be, all right, is going to be the staging IP, all right, address. So I can copy that, scroll down here, all right, and then I can replace what I have here. And then the development and the deploy environment rather is going to be what? Is going to be staging. And then the port is going to be what? Is going to be 4000. All right, sorry, 4000. And this one is basically going to be what? Staging endpoint, right? Okay, so that'll be staging endpoint. Okay, so I can just copy these as well. All right, and for my production environment. Okay, so copy that for production. And then you can see that this is deploying to production. All right, and then the stage name is basically deployed to prod, right? And then, of course, we're still extending. And so this is going to be the prod IP, all right? So prod IP. And then this is going to be production, all right? And sorry, control C that. And then this is going to be what? 5000. And then this right here is going to be what? The prod endpoint, okay? I mean, look at what we have now, right? So the logic is actually here, but now we don't have to duplicate, all right, all of that, right? We don't have to duplicate everything again, okay? I mean, that is not necessary again, because we're basically just extending this job. So we don't have to duplicate all the configurations like we did earlier. And of course, that has reduced the lines of code, the pipeline code significantly. Okay, so now you have deploy to production, you have deploy to staging, and you have deploy, all right, to dev. And that is basically what makes sense, right, compared to what we saw, all right, earlier. I mean, this makes a lot more sense than what we saw or what we had, all right, earlier, all right, when we had all the configuration duplicated. Okay, so now I can actually just commit this, and let's see what happens now. So let's do git commit. All right, so we're just basically going to stay extends keyword. All right, so let's do that. And then let's push, all right, these to the repo. And of course, that's going to trigger the pipeline build, all right? So we can go back to deploy pipelines, and let's watch what happens, all right, this time around, okay? I mean, the pipeline is yet to start, so we can just give that some time, all right? I think it's taking its time now, so let's just wait for that to happen, all right? So we're just going to wait. All right, so for that to happen, so now we can see from the from the Visual Studio Code that it says pipeline pending, so we can know here that the pipeline has actually, all right, been triggered. So now we have the pipeline has been triggered. So let's click here, all right, and now I can see that we have, all right, tests, all right, build, deploy to dev, deploy to staging, and then we have deploy to production. Okay, so let's just wait. All right, let's pause our screen here, and then we come back when the thing is done. All right, so it looks like we have a little challenge here. So let's troubleshoot and let's see what actually, all right, happened. Right, so let's click on deploy to dev, and let's see what the problem actually is. Right, so here it says error response from daemon driver field programming external connectivity on endpoint app 1. All right, and bind, all right, it says port is already allocated, right? Port is already allocated. So let's see what is the problem with that? Now, the problem with that is because, all right, let's look at our configuration. I mean, if you look at it here, we saw, all right, the Docker Compose down, all right, perhaps did not execute, right? So the Docker Compose down is supposed to execute, all right, before any other thing. I mean, if that executed, then we wouldn't have that issue, all right, that we have, right? So we can actually go back here and then let's see Docker PS. All right, so we still have, the app one, all right, still running, right? We can still see that on port 3000, it is still running. But of course, I really don't know why the Docker Compose down did not execute, because that was supposed to delete all of that, all the containers and then recreate, all right, again. So that is supposed to be, all right, the default behavior. Okay, so but then we never know, right, what could cause that issue. So let's see what we can do. All right, so let's go back and let us, just basically stop all of these containers. All right, and then let's try, all right, again. So here I can say docker stop. All right, so I can basically just grab the container ID from here. All right, and then grab the other one. So copy that and then paste that here. All right, so I've stopped all the containers and then I can remove those containers as well. So I can just say docker, all right, rm to remove the containers. All right, and then again, I can also do docker p, all right, I can say docker system, all right, prune -af, basically just, just clear my environment. If there's anything that is not, that I don't need, all right, that is not being used at this point, right, the docker system prune will just basically delete all the images and every other thing, and that will give you some space, all right, in your environment. So now we've cleared all of that. Okay, basically. So let's go back to the pipeline. Of course, the pipeline failed, right? So we can actually just go back here to pipelines, and then we can just trigger the pipeline manually, right? So let's run the pipeline manually now, and let's just say run pipeline, and the pipeline should be triggered. And then let's wait again, and let's come back, all right, when things, all right, happen. Okay, now look at that. That executed, all right, completely. Okay, and of course, the pipeline took 1 minute and 13 seconds, all right, to run. Okay, so everything has actually completed as we expect. Now, if I do Docker PS, of course, I'm going to see my 3 containers. So I have my production, my staging, and my development, right? So I have all the 3 of them. So 5,000, 4,000, and 3,000, right? But of course, we cannot access the production until we, a data security group and add that. So we're going to click on inbound rules here again and add rules. And of course, we need to put 5,000 right here. All right, open it up to everyone and then save the rules. And now if you go back to your pipeline and you go to operate and you click on environment, right, you should have all your 3 environments, right? So you have development, your production, and you have your staging, right? So if I click on each of them and I open up here, I can see my, all right, development environment. I can open up my staging and that is accessible. And then here I can also open up my production and that is equally, right? Sorry. What did I click on? 4,000, 4,000, right? 4,000, 4,000, no. So my production environment is 5,000, right? So, and that is the one right here. So let's open that up. Okay, so that is opening up on port 4,000 also. That should be some error right there. So this is also opening up on 4,000. All right, so that's some error there. So let's check that out. So this is port 5,000, right? So this is opening up on port 5,000. This is opening up on port 4,000, 3,000. So let's see what is the problem here. Because, I mean, production here should open up on port 3, all right, on port 5,000, right? So let's click on this one, all right? So that should open up on port 5,000, right? So we can open up the URL. So let's click on open URL. All right, it's still directing us to 4,000. So let's check our configuration and let's see if there's a place where we actually made that error. So this is 3,000, 4,000, and this is 5,000, right? So what could be, all right, the issue here? So the app port is 5,000. The environment is production, all right, and the prod endpoint is also. So let's look at the prod endpoint. Let's see what we have. All right, so look at the mistake that we made. So here we didn't change this, right? So we didn't change the environment number here to 5,000. I mean, that was what caused, all right, that issue, because I mean, the environment is basically picking up what we have right here. So that is what it's picking up, okay? But of course, if I go here now and I change this one, all right, to 5,000, right, I mean, it should open, all right, for us. So let's open that up. And right now we have our application also accessible, all right, on port 5,000. Is that okay? So thank you so much, guys, all right, for joining me again on this video. In the next video, we're going to look at the concept of monorepo, all right, and polyrepo. All right, what's the difference between a monorepository and a polyrepository? All right, we're going to see that, all right, together. So thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next one.